Welcome, Wapham crew, new listeners, and let's just say friends, fiends, family, phantoms. Everyone out there listening right now, welcome, and thank you so much for being here tonight. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a Rocky Mountain High. Get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, October 16th, Monday, October 17th, for those of you across the pond and beyond. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, and welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I hope you guys have had an awesome weekend so far. Mine has been super epic and crazy and fucked up and this cool stuff all wrapped into one. So yeah, I'm on a different plane tonight. The champ is here. For those of you that don't know, Nick the champ. He's here to get the smack down. He's gonna smash your head with a fold-up chair. Yeah, he's willy-nilly over there. Champ is crazy. Guy is out of control. I don't even know what to do. When Champ comes around, I'm like, damn. If you're listening to us right now, you might be listening to us on We Are Paradox Media's Spreaker. You could also be listening to us on KPNL Radio, and you can find them at KPNL at kpnl-db.com. We're also on eTalk Radio, and we've been doing some past shows and replays, and life is crazy. And this guy Jeff, okay, I don't know if you've ever met him, but he is the founder of eTalk Radio, and he just wants to please your listening ears. He's doing everything he can in his power to enable us to have the best, most epic shows ever for our listening pleasure. So yeah, make sure you go over there to eTalk Radio. If you want to listen to us on your free time, whether you're working it, or working out, just mosey on over. You can go to Spreaker, you can go to YouTube, you can go wherever, but look up We Are Paradox Media. And yeah, like I said, you can find us on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Tumblr, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, Castbox. Oh my goodness. Podcast Addict, Podcast Chaser. Did I already say SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio? I believe I did. But yeah, we're all over the place, and we've been working on doing the Amazon thing, but I don't know what the fuck you are hiring over there, but I don't even know if we're on there yet. We submitted a long time ago. We submitted belly up. Hey, take us on. Is it on Amazon? Let me know if you have, Amazon and you listen to shows on there. Look up We Are Paradox Media and let me know. Is it there? Is it not? I don't know. So tonight, we were gonna have Gigi Gressler on here, but I haven't heard from him. Everybody's schedule is super, super crazy, so I think what I shall do tonight is story time with me, your host, TessaTNT. We're gonna read Mary Shelleys' Frankenstein. Before that, we did Dracula. But yeah, I love this story, and I actually saw posts the other day on, I believe it was a horror page, and it was the picture of Frankenstein and that little girl by the pond, and she's giving him a flower, and everything was going good, but for some apparent reason, I guess he killed her. I don't remember. It's been so long. I need to rewatch that. But there's a picture of her giving him a flower and him smiling, and then later on her body's being carried away. And what the heck just happened? I think he lost his senses, but I think reading this book, we shall discover the mysteries of Frankenstein. So before we go there into storytime land, I actually went out this last Friday and I was in my skeleton costume. And so it comes with socks, but the boots that I were wearing was like too high for them. So I'm wearing these boots, the skeleton costume. I got killed by Michael Myers. Michael Myers, oh my gosh. It's crazy because there's a new Halloween movie out in the theaters. If you haven't seen it, go and see it. I haven't seen it. But like I said before, I have a problem. Spirit of Halloween. Halloween is my favorite holiday, I want to call it season, because the month of October should be Halloween. When I go into Walmart and I see all this Christmas shit, I'm like, are you serious? Bah humbug. Get rid of that. But don't. So I get this card, which is, one of these display cards, but it's got the glittery surroundings on it. I put free full moon ghost hunt. I love those. They're so much fun, and just the energy and everything that happens every time we do one of those. That's how I met my best friend Mia, was on that, and she'll be singing on one of our breaks. I believe she's on second break with crypto. What is it called? Let me scroll down really quick. Lumerian Crypto. Yes. So I'm sitting there, I'm blasting my 80s music. I don't know why, but I've been on an 80s kick recently. And these chicks walk up, and so I get back in my car, and then I get back out, and I'm doing my poster, finish it, get back in, lock everything up. Oh my god, guys, every time I go to hand out flyers on Main Street, for some apparent reason, the first time I left my phone on top of my car. Second time I left my phone in my car. I got everything but the phone, and that causes a lot of problems. Um, but yeah, I'm walking down Main Street with this thing, and I love having this card in front of me because I'm just like, I don't know, my body image right now is not the most positive thing, but I'm working it. I'm a skeleton. I actually got a 1X instead of an extra large. I got a 1X because dresses, I like it when they just like kind of hug me. They're not too tight. They don't show all this voluptuousness underneath. But walking down Main Street, handing out a flyer to these girls. I think they got their food. They went back to their car and they were just gonna eat in their car. And I walk by and I have this poster and I put it up. I'm like, free full moon ghost hunt. Would you like to come? And she's like, oh, she's swallowing her food and she's putting her food down and she's trying to either roll down the window or open the door. She opened the door and I'm like, yes, free full moon ghost hunt. And a lot of people thought, oh, well, I can't do that tonight. Well, it's not tonight. That is on November 6th, I believe. No, it's 8th. November 8th. Free full moon ghost hunt. I was gonna do one on Halloween too, and I told everybody, like, in order to do that, you have to do the money votes. Otherwise, the free votes, you vote, you get to come. I don't care. You can come anyways. Because guess what? Here in about, oh my gosh, it's 7:11 right now. Here in about, let's say, an hour and 49 minutes, that's the end for me. I almost said Michael Myers, but Jason Voorhees, he's going to come for me and he's going to chop my head off and I'm going to be a goner. But you know what? I made it through. I'm pretty proud of myself. I made it through this contest. I was in second place when it went to the quarterfinals. That's when the reanimator phase happens. And yeah, so I died. I got my head cut off, but then I came back to life with a vengeance. And yeah, I was just out there handing out flyers. You guys will not believe the very first person that I gave a flyer to was named Tessa Peterson. And she's like, yeah, my first name is Tessa, but there's an H at the end and my last name is Peterson. I actually ran into myself and I saw myself as a blonde, which I've had nightmares about that. I have to be honest. I've had nightmares where I'm a blonde, but my best friend is a blonde. Stephanie Sela, aka Step on Me. She's a blonde. Never liked blondes. She's like one of the only ones I do like. Okay, Corinne, not talking about you, but all the other ones, no, I just don't mingle. And it's funny because I was born tow-headed. I had blonde hair when I was born. And then my body rejected it and all my fucking hair fell out. And then I regrew my dark locks, which I still have today. There's some, spindly little weird silver hairs on top there, but otherwise, yes. I guess it's kind of like the opposite of those horses that are born black and then they turn white. What the fuck are those called? Oh, I almost had it. It was at the tip of my tongue. They're beautiful stallions. And they were used, I believe, in the Russian War a long, long time ago by Napoleon. But anyways, Lipizaners. Yes, Lipizaners. I believe I'm a human form of Lipizaner. I was born white with blonde hair, blonde dreads. That shit fell out. Then this dark stuff grew back. And now, I'm 43 years old and I have these silver hairs popping up. And it's weird because, I've curled my hair in the past. Generally now I just like wash my hair, dry off with a towel, put it up in a bun, wink, wink, wink. I turn it. Then I wrap it around and then I put another little scrunchie on there. And that curls my hair. I don't use a curling iron anymore. And this guy, Richard, that's a part of my group, I ran into him last Friday. And he's like, oh my God, what did you do with your hair? It's really black. And I'm like, I've never colored my hair. And my hair is the same color all the time. But maybe it's because, like, I took a shower and stuff, and then I put my hair up, then I put my makeup on, then I put my Jason mask up on top of my head. I had the space buns happening. And then, what was I wearing? Oh, horror films and chill. That's me. Like, I love paranormal. I love horror. I love all that stuff. Like, it's my favorite. So the champ was here, but he's very quiet right now. Can you hear the rain dropping outside? It rained a lot earlier, but for some reason, there's still water flowing somewhere. I'm like, is that actually the rain still like coming off the elm tree or whatever down my roof? Or is that the water heater leaking? What the hell? I just can't hear it raining. Maybe it's sprinkling outside or something. But yeah, I met myself, Tessa Peterson, and she was a blonde and she was beautiful. And that was the beginning of my night on Main Street in Durango, Colorado. So I went up and down Main Street, then I ended in front of a bar. This bar, I don't know if you guys know who Jack Dempsey is, but he used to be like bigger than even Mike Tyson. Like he would knock a motherfucker out. So they used to have boxing matches down in the basement of this bar, which is called El Rancho. I went there and I stood outside most of the night. And I'm like, Casey, I gotta pee a couple times. And I'm like, Casey, I'm thirsty. I'm gonna go get a beer. So I went and I got a pinstripe. And that is a local beer, and it's so freaking good. But yeah, I drank that up, went back outside, kept handing out flyers. And then later on in the evening, I actually went back and ran the pool tables. That's what I did. And I was so surprised. One of the first people I met was one of the bouncers, and he had this like earpiece and also the shit going on, and he is a Marine. And then this other fellow showed up. He was a Marine, and then there was another one, and he was with a group of people, and he just seemed so awkward. He just felt like he was so out of place. And so I talked to his friend. I was like, "Hey, what's up with your dude?" She's like, he's kind of weird in social situations. I'm like, is he military? And she said, yes. And I was like, is he a Marine? And she said, yes. And I'm like, that's my boy. Still a Marine. Hoorah, Semper Fi. Hello, beautiful sister Sandra. But no, it was cool. I met a lot of Marines on Friday night. I met Tessa Peterson, which is not me, but a blonde, beautiful woman with the same name as me. But she just said, instead of all this other shit, like, there's an H at the end of Tessa. That's weird. Is that biblical? I don't know. It kind of weirded me out. Sunny.
Chicken bacon ranch and pepperoni.
Well, thank you, Sunny.
I just now tried chicken bacon ranch, and it ain't that good.
Yeah, you don't like it?
Not so good.
Well, thanks for the pizza.
Dad told me to hand it to you.
Well, I love you, dude.
Love you too.
Hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
How much have you been drinking tonight?
I don't know.
He doesn't even know. But he's like staggering to get out of here. I'm like, what are you drinking? What's in your Kool-Aid? Somebody spike it with vodka or tequila or something? Yeah, he was delivering my pizza while singing the Star Wars theme. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, last night was crazy, you guys. I still can't wrap my head around it. So I'm going to hit this auto DJ button, and now I don't know about you guys, like, does it keep buffering or something? Because I'm like, I feel like I've been on here for longer than 20 minutes and 25 seconds. What the crack is going on? This is so weird. But yeah, I met Tessa Peterson. I handed out so many flyers, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm not even from here. I'm like, but you can still vote. Do you know what? Nobody that I handed out flyers to, maybe there's one or two, but nobody. Hello?
Need to clear the throat.
You guys been drinking that Kool-Aid?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit, man. What, Arthur gets you drunk or what? Like... I love you, Bug.
Love you too, Mom.
You're my best sidekick ever.
You're the best teacher, Mom. Yay.
Make sure after you get done eating your pizza, you wash that little pizza sauce off your face. Yeah, your tongue's not quite reaching it. You're so beautiful. I love you.
Love you too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, I love my kids. They're so awesome. And it's like I try to keep this professional. I try to do the best I can, but you know, family comes first, so you guys are just kind of partaking in my shenanigans here. Dude, I swear to God, I just typed hello. So that makes me wonder, am I buffering? Because I swear to God, I already said this. I'm kind of freaked out right now. Anywho, so what we're gonna do tonight. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you guys. I had to go and get like 5 cups of coffee, and then I gave this guy a ride home. So yeah. I give him a ride home, so that means I'm fucking him. So whatever. But he's a Navajo guy, and he's a Marine, and his name was Red House, and I love that shit. I don't know. To me, that's awesome. But whatever. He also is an artist, and he wants me to push his artwork. So, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Are you freaking serious? I swear to God, I'm buffering. Something is happening here. Chapter 5. Are you guys ready? I have to take a hit off my vape real quick before I do this because, nicotine is very, very, very popular. Okay, 2. So if you're listening right now, what you need to do is take your whoopee, aka your warm little blankie, put it around your shoulders, make yourself a hot cup of cocoa, settle down in your most favorite spot, and let your listening ears partake of what we're about to read. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Chapter 5. It was on a dreary night of November that I beheld the accomplishment of my toils. With an anxiety, excuse me, with an anxiety that almost amounted to agony, I collected the instruments of life around me, that I might infuse a spark of being into the lifeless thing that lay at my feet. It was already 1 in the morning. The rain pattered dismally against the panes, and my candle was nearly burnt out, when by the glimmer of the half-extinguished light I saw the dull yellow eye of a creature open. It breathed hard, and convulsive motion agitated its limbs. How can I describe my emotions at this catastrophe, or how delineate the wretch whom, with such infinite pains and care, I had endeavored to form? His limbs were in proportion, and I had selected his features as beautiful. Beautiful! Great God! Was, oh my goodness, his yellow skin scarcely covered the work of muscles and arteries beneath. His hair was of a lustrous black and flowing. His teeth were of pearly whiteness, but these luxuriances only formed a more horrid contrast with his watery eyes, that seemed almost of the same color as the dune-white sockets in which they were set. His shriveled complexion and straight black lips. Different actions of life are not so changeable as the feelings of human nature. I had worked hard for nearly 2 years for the sole purpose of infusing life into an inanimate body. For this I had deprived myself of rest and health. I had desired it with an ardor that far exceeded motivation. But now that I had desired it and finished, the beauty of the dream vanished, and breathless horror and disgust filled my heart. Unable to endure the aspect of the being I had created, I rushed out of the room and continued a long time traversing my bedchamber, unable to compose my mind to sleep. At length, lassitude succeeded to the tumult I had before endured, and I threw myself on the bed in my clothes, endeavoring to seek a few moments of forgetfulness. But it was in vain. I slept, indeed I did, but I was disturbed by the wildest dreams. I thought I saw Elizabeth in the bloom of health, walking in the streets of Ingolstadt. Delighted and surprised, I embraced her, but as I imprinted the first kiss on her lips, they became livid with the hue of death. Her features appeared to change, and I thought that I held the corpse of my dead mother in my arms. A shroud enveloped her form, and I saw the grave worms crawling in the folds of flannel. I started from my sleep with horror. A cold dew covered my forehead, my teeth chattered, and every limb became convulsed, when by the dim and yellow light of the moon, as it forced its way through the window shutters, I beheld the wretch, the miserable monster whom I had created. He held up the curtain of the bed, and his eyes, if eyes they may be called, were fixed on me. His jaws opened, and he muttered some inarticulate sounds while I wrinkled his cheeks. He might have spoken, but I did not hear. One hand was rushed out, seemingly to detain me, but I escaped and rushed downstairs. I took refuge in the courtyard belonging to the house which I inhabited, where I remained during the rest of the night, walking up and down the greatest agitation, listening attentively, catching and fearing each sound as if it were to announce the approach of the demoniacal corpse to which I had so miserably given life. Oh! No mortal corpse, no mortal could support the horror of that countenance. A mummy again endued with animation could not be so hideous as that wretch. I had gazed at him while unfinished. He was ugly then, but when those muscles and joints were rendered capable of motion, it became a thing such as even Dante could not have conceived. I passed the night wretchedly. Sometimes my pulse beat so quickly and hardly that I felt the palpitation of every artery. At others, I nearly sank to the ground. Though languor and extreme weakness mingled with this horror, I felt the bitterness of disappointment. Dreams that had been my food and pleasant rest for so complete. Morning dismal wet, and length dawned, and discovering to my sleepiness and aching eyes the church of Ingolstadt, its wide steeple and clock which it indicated the 6th hour. The portal opened, and the gates of the court, which had that night been my asylum, and I issued into the streets, pacing them with quick steps, as if sought to avoid the wretch whom I feared every turning of the street would present to my view. I did not dare to return to the apartment which I inhabited. but felt impelled to hurry on, although drenched by the rain which poured from the black and comfortless sky. I continued walking in this manner for some time, endeavoring by bodily exercise to ease the load weighed upon my mind. I traversed the street without any clear conception of where I was or what I was doing. My heart palpitated in the sickness of fear, and I hurried on with irregular shape, not daring to look about me. Like one on a lonesome road who doth walk in fear and dread, and having once turned round walks on, and turns no more his head, because he knows a frightful fiend doth close behind him tread. Creepy. Continuing thus, I came at length opposite to the inn at which the various diligences and carriages usually stopped. Here I paused, I knew not why, but I remained some minutes with my eyes fixed on a coach that was coming towards me from the other end of the street. As it drew nearer, I observed that it was the Swiss diligence. It stopped just where I was standing, and, on the door being opened, I perceived Henry Clevel, who, on seeing me, instantly sprung out. "My dear Frankenstein," exclaimed he, "how glad I am to see you! How fortunate that you should be here at the very moment of my alighting!" Nothing could equal my delight on seeing Clerval. His presence brought back to my thoughts my father, Elizabeth, and all those scenes of home so dear to my recollection. I grasped his hand, and in a moment forgot my horror and misfortune. I felt suddenly, and for the first time during many months, calm and serene joy. I welcomed my friend, therefore, in the most cordial manner, and we walked towards the college. Clerval continued talking for some time about our mutual friends and his own good fortune in being permitted to come to Ingolstadt. "You may easily believe," he said, "how great was the difficulty to persuade my father, and all the necessary knowledge that all the necessary knowledge was not comprised in the noble art of bookkeeping, and, indeed, I believe I left him incredulous to the last, for his constant answer to my unwearied entreaties was the same as that of the Dutch schoolmaster and the vicar of Wakefield. I have 10,000 florins a year without Greek. I eat healthily without the Greek." But his affection for me at length overcame his dislike of learning, and he was permitted to me to undertake the voyage of discovering the land of knowledge. "It grieves the greatest delight to see you, but tell me how you left my father, brothers, and Elizabeth." "Very well, and very happy, only a little uneasy that they hear from you so seldom. By and by, I mean to lecture you a little upon account myself. But, my dear Frankenstein," continued he, stopping short and gazing full in my face, "I did not before remark how very ill you appear, so thin and pale, and as if you had been watching for several nights." "Well, you have guessed right. I have lately been so deeply engaged in our occupation that I have not allowed myself sufficient rest, as you see. But I sincerely hope that all of these employments are now at an end, and that I am at length to be free." I trembled excessively. I could not endure to think of, and far less to allude to, the occurrences of the preceding night. I walked with a quick pace, and we soon arrived at my college. I then reflected, and the thought made me shiver. And the creature whom I had left in my apartment might still be there, alive and walking about. I dreaded to behold this monster, but I feared still more that Henry should see him. Entreating him, therefore, to remain a few minutes at the bottom of the stairs, I darted up towards my own room. My hand was already on the lock of the door before I recollected myself, and then I paused, and I could shiver. This shiver really came upon me. I threw the door forcibly open, as children are accustomed to do when they expect a scepter or spectre to stand in waiting for them on the other side. But nothing appeared. I stepped fearfully in. The apartment was empty, and my bedroom was also freed from its hideous guests. I could hardly believe that so great a good fortune could have befallen me. But when I became assured that my enemy had indeed fled, I clapped my hands for joy and ran down the Clairvaux. I ascended into my room, and the servant presently brought breakfast, but I was unable to contain myself. It was not joy only that possessed me. I felt my flesh tingle with excess of sensitiveness, and my pulse was beating rapidly. I was unable to remain for a single instant in the same place. I jumped over the chairs, clapped my hands, and laughed aloud. Clerval at first attributed my unusual spirits to joy on his arrival, but when he observed me more attentively, he saw a wildness in my eyes, for which he could not account, and my loud, unrestrained, heartless laughter frightened and astonished him. "My dear Victor," cried he, "what, for God's sake, is the matter? Do not laugh in that manner. How ill are you? What is the cause of all this?" "Do not ask me," I cried, putting my hands before my eyes, for I thought I saw the dreaded spectre glide into the room. "He can tell. Oh, save me! Save me! I imagined the monster seized me. I struggled furiously, and fell down in a fit. Poor Clerval! What must have been his feelings? A meeting which he anticipated with such joy, so strangely tuned to bitterness. But I was not the witness of his grief, for I was lifeless, and did not recover my senses for a long, long time. This was the commencement of a nervous fever, which confined me for several months. During all the time, Henry was my only nurse. I afterwards learned that, knowing my father's advanced age and unfitness for his long journey, and how wretched my sickness would make Elizabeth, he spared them this grief by concealing the extent of my disorder. He knew that I could not have a more kind and attentive nurse than myself, or himself, and, firm in the hope he felt my recovery, he did not doubt that, instead of doing harm, he performed the kindest action that he could towards them. But I was in reality very, very ill, and surely nothing but the unbounded and unremitting attentions of my friend could have restored me to life. The form of the monster on whom I had bestowed existence was forever before my eyes, and I raved incessantly concerning him. Doubtless my words surprised Henry. He at first believed them to be the wanderings of my disturbed imagination, but his pertinacity, with which I continually recurred to the same subject, persuaded him that my disorder indeed owed its origin to some uncommon and terrible event. By very slow degrees, and with frequent relapses that alarmed and grieved my friend, I recovered. I remember the first time I became capable of observing outward objects with any kind of pleasure. I perceived that the fallen leaves had disappeared and that the young buds were shooting forth from the trees and shaded by the window. It was a divine spring, and the season contributed greatly to my convalescence. I felt also sentiments of joy and affection revive in my bosom. My gloom disappeared, and in a short time I became as cheerful as before I was attacked by the fatal passion. "Dearest Clerval," exclaimed I, "how kind, how very good you are to me! This whole winter, instead of being spent in study, as you promised yourself, has been consumed in my sick room. How shall I ever repay you? I feel the greatest remorse for the disappointment of which I have been the occasion. But you will forgive me. You will repay me entirely, if you do not decompose yourself, but get well as fast as you can. And since you appear in such good spirits, I may speak to you on one subject, may I not?" "Compose yourself," said Clerval, who observed the change of colour. "I will not mention it if it agitates you, but your father and cousin would be very happy if they received a letter from you in your own handwriting. They hardly know how ill you have been, and are uneasy at your long distance and silence." "Is that all, my dear Henry? How could you suppose that my first thought would not fly towards those dear, dear friends whom I love, and who are so deserving of my love? If this is your present temper, my friend, you will perhaps be glad to see a letter that has been flying and lying here for some time for you. It is from your cousin, I believe." So we're going to chapter 6. Let's see how long this is. This is at quite a distance. So I think, I don't know, maybe we'll do an early music break. I'm not sure. I don't know, let's go on to chapter 6. Clerval then put the following letter into my hands. It was from my own Elizabeth. "My dearest cousin, you have been ill, very ill, and even the constant letters of dear kind Henry are not sufficient to reassure me on your account. You are forbidden to write, to hold a pen, yet one word from you, dear Victor, is necessary to calm your apprehensions. For a long time I have thought that each post would bring this line, and my persuasions have restrained my uncle from undertaking a journey of Ingolstadt. I have prevented his encountering the inconveniences and perhaps dangers of so long a journey. Yet how often have I regretted not being able to perform it myself? I figure to myself that the task of attending on your sick bed has devolved on some mercenary old nurse, who could never guess your wishes, nor minister to them with the care and affection of your poor cousin. Yet that is over now. Clerval writes that, indeed, you are getting better. I eagerly hope that you will confirm his intelligence soon in your own handwriting. Get well, and return to us. You will find a happy, cheerful home, and friends who love you dearly. Your father's health is vigorous, and he asks but to see you, but to be assured that you are well, and not a care will ever cloud his benevolent countenance. Excuse me. How pleased you would be to remark the improvement of your Ernest. He is now 16, and full of activity and spirit. He is desirous to be a true Swiss, and to enter into foreign service, but we cannot part with him, at least until his elder brother return to us. My uncle is not pleased with the idea of military career in an distant country, but Ernest never had your powers of application. He looks upon the study as an arduous fetter. His time is spent in the open air, climbing the hills or rowing the lake. I fear that he will become an idler unless we yield the point and permit him to enter on the profession which he has selected. Little alteration, except the growth of our dear children, has taken since you left us. The blue lake and snow-clad mountains, they never change, and I think our placid home and our own contented hearts are regulated by the same immutable laws. My trifling occupations take up my time and amuse me, and rewarded for exertions by seeing none but happy, kind faces around me. Since you left, but one change has taken place in our little household. Do you remember on what occasion Justine Moritz entered our family? Probably you do not. I will relate his history, or her history, therefore, and a few words. Madame Moritz, her mother, was a widow of 4 children, of whom Justine was the third. This girl had always been the favorite of her father, but through a strange perversity, her mother could not endure her, and after the death of M. Moritz, treated her very ill. My aunt observed this, and when Justine was 12 years of age, prevailed on her mother to allow her to live at our house. The republican institutions of our country have produced simpler and happier manners than those which prevail in the great monarchies that surround it. Hence there is less distinction between the several classes of its inhabitants, and the lower orders being neither so poor nor so despised, their manners are more refined and moral. A servant in Geneva does not mean the same thing as a servant in France and England. Justine, thus received in our family, learned the duties of a servant, a condition which in our fortunate country does not include the idea of ignorance and the sacrifice of dignity of human being. Well, on that note, guys, we're gonna take a break from Frankenstein because, this lady, I guarantee when she talks, is left breathless, and when she writes in her journal, she needs more pages. Anywho's, on this note, we have Jeff Hilliard from Los Angeles, California, with Finger Bang Your Day. I fucking love this song. Consensual Sex Van, Multitude, and Abandon. And then we have Cockroach from the UK with We Play House. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
When your life is a never-ending train wreck and you feel like you're drowning in a sea of regret, with a bit of oppression pressing down on your neck, it hurts so bad. When your overwhelming hatred kills your heart's desire and reality starts looking like a dumpster fire, you start bitching to me, but you're preaching to the choir. You don't need to be so mad, 'cause sometimes we hurt, sometimes we cry, sometimes we're sure there's no reason to try. When the whole world goes completely insane, open your heart, stand up and sing, I'm gonna finger bang my day. Yeah, yeah, I'll finger bang my day. That's right. You gotta make the choice to give it all you've got and make your day long with pleasure, really make it hot, because your day deserves
we really doing? We can't live in a world that has this much hate. We have to get honest with ourselves. We have to take stock in what our part is in all of this madness. We have to let go, and we focus on giving love, setting that intention. And each and every single one of us gets up every day with the intention to give love. And we do it. We go out there and we give love every single day. Each one of us gets out there and makes love to our day, giving our day a multiple orgasm. The whole world will be orgasmic for the rest of eternity. Sometimes we hurt, sometimes we cry, sometimes we should. There's no reason to try when the whole world is fucking insane. We open our hearts, stand up and sing. I'm gonna finger bang my day. Finger bang my day. Finger bang my day. Let's open our hearts, stand up and sing. I'm gonna finger bang my day. Yeah, yeah. Finger bang my day. Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Let me take you far away from all this huff and puff. There will be nothing in between our love, like a pair of doves flying high above, where nothing can touch us, touching softly. Don't let me go, I won't let you go. This is eternity with me, baby. Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? You don't have to be magic, healthy laughter, boundaries, safe space, ongoing mutual consent, passion, happily we'll be bearing our souls, naked by the sea. We'll breathe the clean air. We'll be living, laughing, loving forever. Baby, do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? You don't have to be alone anymore. We will be together forever in love. Do you wanna go for a ride? Do you wanna go in my consensual? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Just get in the van.
Drop a can of drip, drip, drip. Drop a can of drip, drop a can of drip.
Like I'm all in moves. Got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head long. Never gonna cut it.
All these hookers sweet on me. Look at them chasing me, showing me that ass. And I bang up the snatch. I do this shit for free. Go down your mama till 3. She's taking selfies with the mullet like it's history. I can't outmaneuver you with that pussy, dude. You sit like Buddha waiting on it to come to you. My lines are straight to the point. She shows me gratitude. So what's your latitude? Let's adjust your attitude. Head with a alligator, double dually Lamborghini. All up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini.
I got molar moves. I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that.
Head with a alligator, double dually Lamborghini. All up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini.
Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head long. Never gonna cut it.
Alligator, double dually Lamborghini. All up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini. You're like the butt of a butter knife cutting up panini. So climb back in your kangaroo pouch like a rolling genie. These moves are hot, these locks I got. This power cannot be disputed and it can't be bought. So you can find me in the studio with all these thoughts. You wanna buy my style, but you can't be what you're not, neighbor.
I got molar moves. I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head long. Never gonna cut it. Got that motherfucking ballin'. You wanna touch it?
Yeah. Next time you come around here with your bitch ass, just remember how my mullet makes your hoes pussy drip, drip, drip.
I got molar moves. I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head long. Never gonna cut it. I got molar moves. I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar
play house. We play house.
You're desperate and pathetic. Nothing but a coward. You're a fool with nothing to offer. No one will ever believe you. They see you for what you are. You're just a fraud, a shell of a person. And now the power of the spirit of penetrate the demons. They love you. They enslave you into the depths of hate. I am the son of
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. That was Jeff Hilliard from Los Angeles, California. We also had Cockroach from the UK. I hope you guys and thank you so much for joining us. Oh, hold on a second. Late Night in the Rockies. That was weird. Anywho's, I'm enjoying a cigar right now, and this is quite nice. I don't even know why I started vaping in the first place, except for I know this is really bad for me. But it's very nice, very nice. Grape Swisher Sweet, if anybody's wondering. That is what I was smoking at the present moment. Hold up. Here we are at chapter 6. Clairvoyant then put the following into a letter in my hands. It was from my own Elizabeth. My dearest cousin, you have been ill, very ill, and even the constant letters of dear kind Henry are not sufficient to assure me on your account. You are forbidden to write, to hold a pen, yet one word from you, dear Victor, is necessary to calm our apprehensions. For a long time I have thought that each post would bring this line, and my persuasions have restrained my uncle from undertaking a journey of Ingolstadt. I have prevented his encountering inconveniences and perhaps dangers of so long a journey, yet how often have I regretted not being able to perform it myself. I figure to myself that the task of attending on your sick bed has devolved on some mercenary old nurse, who could never guess your wishes nor minister to them with the care and affection of your poor cousin. Yet that is over now. Clerval writes that indeed you are getting better. I eagerly hope that you will confirm this intelligence soon on your own handwriting. Get well and return to us. You will find a happy, cheerful home and friends who love you dearly. Your father's health is vigorous, and he asks but to see you. But to be assured that you are well, and not a care will ever cloud his benevolent countenance. How pleased you would be to remark the improvement of our Ernest. He is now 16, and full of activity and spirit. He is desirous to be a true Swiss, and to enter into the foreign service, but we cannot part with him, at least until his elder brother return to us. My uncle is not pleased with the idea of a military career in a distant country, but Ernest never had your powers of application. He looks upon study as an arduous fetter, and his time is spent in the open air, climbing the hills or rowing in the lake, I fear that he will become an idler unless we yield the point, and permit him to enter the profession which he has selected. Little alteration, except the growth of our dear children, has taken place since you left us. The blue lake and snow-clad mountains, they never change, and I think our placid home and our contented hearts are regulated by the same immutable laws. My trifling occupations take up my time and assume me. They amuse me, and I am aware and rewarded for any exertions by seeing none but happy, kind faces around me. Since you left us, but one change has taken place in our little household. Do you remember on what occasion Justine Mortiz entered our family? Probably you do not. I will relate her history, therefore, in a few words. Madame Moritz, her mother, was a widow with 4 children, of whom Justine was the third. This girl had always been the favorite of her father, but through a strange perversity her mother could not endure her, and after the death of M. Mortiz, treated her very ill. My aunt observed this, and when Justine was 12 years old, prevailed on her mother to allow her to live at our house. The republican institutions of our country have produced ampler and happier manners than those which prevail in the great monarchies that surround it. Hence there is less distinction between several classes of its inhabitants, and the lower orders, being neither so poor not so despised, their manner are more refined and moral. A servant in Geneva does not mean the same thing as a servant in France or England. Justine, thus received in our family, learned the duties of a servant, a condition which, in our fortunate country, does not include the idea of ignorance and a sacrifice of the dignity of a human being. Justine, you may remember, was a great favorite of yours, and I recollect that you once remarked that if you were in an ill humor, one glance from Justine could dissipate it, for the same reason that Ariosto gives concerning the beauty of Angelica. She looked so frank-hearted and happy, my aunt conceived a great attachment for her, by which she was induced to give her an education superior to that which she had first intended. This benefit was fully repaid. Justine was the most grateful little creature in the world. I do not mean that she made any professions. I never heard one pass her lips, but you could see by her eyes that she almost adored her protectress. Although her disposition was gay, and in a respect inconsiderate, yet she paid the greatest attention to every gesture of my aunt. Oh, my goodness. Monroe? Yes?
On it says antivirus expired.
Okay, so just go past that. Just ignore it.
Well, I can't because it doesn't give me the chance.
Is there an X in the corner? Just
No,
press the X in the corner.
There's not an X in the corner.
Well, I don't know what to do because it should say renew it or it should say something else. So don't renew it. There's another button besides that. Press the other one.
Install.
Uninstall.
Okay. Love you, Mom.
Love you too. Hence there is less distinction between the several classes of its inhabitants, and the lower orders, being neither so poor nor so despised, their manners are more refined and moral. A servant in Geneva does not mean the same thing as a servant in France and England. Justine, thus received in our family, learned the duties of a servant, a condition which, in our fortunate country, does not include the idea of ignorance and a sacrifice of the dignity of the human being. Justine, you may remember, was a great favorite of yours, and I recollect that you once remarked that if you were in an ill humor, one glance from Justine could dispute it, for the same reason that Ariosto gives concerning the beauty of the attachment for her. by which she was induced to give her an education superior. Yes, we already read all this stuff. And this cat is looking at my computer like it's about to jump on there. Don't do it. Don't do it, Kung Pa Kitten. Come here. So although her disposition was gay and in many respects inconsiderate, yet she paid the greatest attention to every gesture of my aunt. She thought her the model of all excellence and endeavored to imitate her phraseology and manners, so that even now she often reminds me of her. When my dearest aunt died, every one was too much occupied in their own grief to notice poor Justine, who had attended her illness with the most anxious affection. Poor Justine was very ill. Other trials were reserved for her. Go on, come pack it and get out. Shoo, I said shoo. Okay, get your tail out of the door so I can close it. Thank you. When my dearest aunt died, every one was too much occupied in their own grief to notice poor Justine, who had attended her illness with the most anxious affection. Poor Justine was very ill, but other trials were reserved for her. One by one her brothers and sister died, and her mother, with the exception of her neglected daughter, was left childless. The conscience of the woman was troubled. She began to think that the deaths of her favourites were a judgment from heaven to chastise her partiality. She was a Roman Catholic, and I believe her confessor confirmed the idea which she had conceived. Accordingly, a few months after your departure from Ingolstadt, Justine was called home by her repentant mother. Poor girl! She wept when she quitted our house. She was much altered since the death of my aunt. Grief had given softness and a winning mildness to her manners, which had before been remarkable for vivacity. Not was her residence at her mother's house of a nature to restore her gaiety. The poor woman was very vacillating in her repentance. She sometimes begged Justine to forgive her unkindness, but much oftener accused her of having caused the deaths of her brothers and sister. Perpetual fretting at length threw Madame Moritz into a decline, which at first increased her irritability, but she is now at peace forever. She died on the first approach of cold winter. At the beginning of this last winter, Justine has returned to us, and I assure you I love her tenderly. She is very clever and gentle, and extremely pretty. As I mentioned before, her mien and her expressions continually remind me of my dear aunt. I must say also a few words to you, my dear cousin, of little darling William. I wish you could see him. He is very tall of his age, with sweet laughing blue eyes, dark eyelashes, and curling hair. When he smiles, 2 little dimples appear on each cheek, which are rosy with health. He has already had 1 or 2 little wives, but Louisa Byron is his favourite, a pretty little girl of 5 years of age. Ew, that's gross. Anyways. Now, dear Victor, I dare say you wish to indulge in a little gossip concerning the good people of Geneva. The pretty Miss Mansfield was already received congratulatory visits on her approaching marriage with a young Englishman, John Melbourne, Esquire. Her ugly sister, Manon, married M. Duvillard, a rich banker, last autumn. Your favourite schoolfellow, Louis Manoir, is suffered misfortune since the departure of Clairvaux and Geneva, but he has already recovered his spirits and is reported to be on the point of marrying a very lively, pretty Frenchwoman, Madame Tavernier. She is a widow and much older than Manoir, but she is a very much admired and a favourite with everybody. I have written myself into better spirits, dear cousin, but My anxiety returns upon me as I conclude. Write, dearest Victor, one line, one word will be a blessing to us. 10,000 thanks to Henry for his kindness, his affection, and his many letters. We are sincerely grateful. Adieu, my cousin. Take care of yourself, and I entreat you to write. Elizabeth Lavenza, Geneva, March 18th, 17 whatever. I don't know, I'm pretty in love with this cigar. I'm glad I bought this earlier because it's quite tasty. Dear, dear Elizabeth, I exclaimed when I had read her letter, I will write instantly and relieve them from the anxiety they must feel. I wrote, and this exercise greatly fatigued me, but my convalescence had commenced and proceeded regularly. In another fortnight I was able to leave my chamber. One of my first duties on my recovery was to introduce Clairvaux to the several professors of the university. In doing this, I understand a kind of rough usage, ill befitting the wounds that my mind had sustained ever since the fatal night, the end of my labours and the beginning of my misfortunes. I had conceived a violent antipathy, even to the name of natural philosophy. When I was otherwise quite restored to health, the sight of a chemical instrument would renew all the agony of my nervous symptoms. Henry saw this, and had removed all my apparatuses from my view. He had also changed my apartment, for he perceived that I had acquired a dislike for the room which had previously been my laboratory. But these cares of Clairvaux were made of no avail when I visited the professors. M. Waldman inflicted torture when he praised, with kindness and warmth, the astonishing progress I had made in the sciences. He soon perceived that I disliked the subject, but not guessing the real cause, he attributed my feelings to modesty and changed the subject from my improvement to the science itself, with a desire, as I evidently saw, of drawing me out. What could I do? He meant to please, and he tormented me. I felt as if he had placed carefully, one by one, in my view those instruments which were to be afterwards used in putting me to a slow and cruel death. I writhed under his words, yet dared not exhibit the pain I felt. Clairvoyant, whose eyes and feelings were always quick in discerning the sensation of others, declined the subject, alleging in excuse his total ignorance, and the conversation took a more general run. I thanked my friend from my heart, but I did not speak. I saw plainly that he was surprised, but he never attempted to draw my secret from me, and although I loved him with a mixture of affection and reverence that knew no bounds, yet I could never persuade myself to confide to him that event which was so often present to my recollection, but which I feared the detail to another would only impress more deeply. Mr. Crimp was not equally docile, and in my condition at that time of almost insupportable sensitiveness, his harsh, blunt encomiums gave me even more pain than the benevolent approbation of M. Walden. Damn the fellow, cried he. Why, M. Clerval, I assure you he has outstripped us all, eh? Stare if you please, but it is nevertheless true. A youngster who, but a few years ago, believed in Cornelius Agrippa as firmly as in the gospel, has now set himself at the head of the university, and if he is not soon pulled down, we shall all be out of countenance. Ay, continued he, observing my face expressive of suffering, and Frankenstein is modest and excellent quality in young men. Young men should be diffident of themselves, you know, M. Clerval. I myself, when young, but what wears out in a very short time. In Crimp had now commenced a eulogy on himself, which happily turned the conversation from a subject that was so annoying to me. Clerval had never sympathized in my taste of natural science, and his literary pursuits differed wholly from those which had occupied me. He came to my university with the design of making himself complete master of the Oriental language, as thus he should open a field for the plan of life he had marked on himself. Resolved to pursue no inglorious career, he returned his eyes towards the east as affording scope for his spirit of enterprise. The Persian, Arabic, and Sanskrit languages engaged his attention, and I was easily induced to enter on time of studies. Idleness had ever been irksome to me, and now that I wished to fly from reflection and hated my former studies, I felt great relief in being the fellow pupil with my friend, and found not only instruction but consolation in the words of the Orientalists. I did not, like him, attempt a critical knowledge of their dialects, for I did not contemplate making any other use of them than temporary amusement. I read merely to understand their joy, elevating to a degree I never experienced in studying the authors of any other country. When I read their writings, life appears to consist in a warm sun and a garden of roses, in the smiles and frowns of a fair enemy, and the fire that consumes your own heart. How different from the manly and heroical poetry of Greece and Rome! Summer passed away in these occupations, and my return to Geneva was fixed for the latter end of autumn. But being delayed by several accidents, winter and snow arrived. The roads were deemed impassable, and my journey was retarded until the ensuing spring. I felt this delay very bitterly. I longed to see my native town and my beloved friends. My return had only been delayed so long from an unwillingness to leave Clairville in a strange place before he had become acquainted with any of its inhabitants. The winter, however, was spent cheerfully, and, although the spring was uncommonly late, when it came to its beauty compensated for its dilatoriness. What the crack? The month of May had already commenced, and I expected the letter daily which was to fix the date of my departure, when Henry proposed a pedestrian tour in the environs of Ingolstadt, that I might bid a personal farewell to the country I had so long inhabited. I acceded with pleasure to this proposition. I was fond of exercise, and Clairvoyant had always been my favourite companion in the rambles of this nature that had taken among the scenes of my native country. We passed a fortnight in these perambulations. My health and spirits had long been restored, and they gained the additional strength from the salubrious air I breathed and the natural incidents of our progress, and the conversation of my friend. Study had before secluded me from the intercourse of my fellow creatures, and rendered me unsocial, but Clerval called forth the better feelings of my heart. He again taught me to love the aspect of nature, and the cheerful faces of children. Excellent friend, how sincerely did you love me, and endeavor to elevate my mind until it was at a level with your own! A selfish pursuit had cramped and narrowed me until your gentleness and affection warmed the open of my senses. I became the same happy creature who, a few years ago, loved and beloved by all, had no sorrow or care. When happy, inanimate nature had the power of bestowing on me the most delightful sensations, the serene sky and verdant fields filled me with ecstasy. The present season was indeed divine. The flowers of spring bloomed in the hedges, while those of the summer were already in bud. I was undisturbed by thoughts which during the preceding year had pressed upon me, notwithstanding my endeavors to throw them off with an invincible burden. Henry rejoiced in my gaiety and sincerely sympathized in my feelings. He exerted himself to amuse me, while he expressed the sensations that filled his soul. The resources of his mind on this occasion were truly astonishing. His conversation was full of imagination, and very often an imitation of the Persian and Arabic writers. He inverted tales of wonderful fancy and passion. At other times, he repeated my favorite poems, or drew me out into arguments, which he supposed with great ingenuity. We returned to our college on a Sunday afternoon. The peasants were dancing, and every one we met appeared gay and happy. My own spirits were high, and I bounded along with feelings of unbridled joy and hilarity. Chapter 7. On my return, I found the following letter from my father. My dear Victor, you have probably waited impatiently for a letter to fix the date of your return to us, and I was at first tempted to write only a few lines, merely mentioning the day on which I should expect you, but that would be a cruel kindness, and I dare not do it. What would be your surprise, my son, when you expect a happy and glad welcome, to behold, on the contrary, tears and wretchedness? And how, Victor, can I relate this misfortune? Absence cannot render you callous to our joys and griefs. And how shall I inflict pain on my long-absent son? I wish to prepare you for the woeful news, but I know it is impossible. Even now your eye skims over the page to seek the words which are to convey to you the horrible tidings. William is dead, that sweet child whose smile delighted and warmed my heart, who was so gentle, so gay. Victor, he is murdered. I will not attempt to console you, but will simply relate the circumstances of the transaction. Last Thursday, May 7th, I, my niece, and your two brothers went to walk in the Plain Palace. The evening was warm and serene, and we prolonged our walk farther than usual. It was already dusk before we thought of returning, and then we discovered that William and Ernest, who had gone on before, were not to be found. We accordingly resting on a seat until they should return. Presently Ernest came and inquired if we had seen his brother. He said that he had been playing with him, that William had run away and hid himself, and that he vainly sought for him, and afterwards waited for him a long time, but he did not return. This account rather alarmed us, and we continued to search for him until night fell, when Elizabeth conjectured that he might have returned to the house. He was not there. We returned again, with torches, for I could not rest when I thought that my sweet boy had lost himself and was exposed to all the damps and dews of the night. Elizabeth also suffered extreme anguish. About 5 in the morning, I discovered my lovely boy, whom the night before I had seen blooming, active in health, stretched on the grass, livid and motionless. The print of the murderer's finger was on his neck. He was conveyed home, and the anguish that was visible in our countenance betrayed the secret to Elizabeth. She was very earnest to see the corpse. At first I attempted to prevent her, but she persisted, and entered the room where it lay, hastily examined the neck of the victim, and clasped her hands, exclaiming, "Oh God! I have murdered my darling child!" She fainted, and was restored with extreme difficulty. When she again lived, it was only a weep and sigh. She told me that the same evening William had teased her to let him wear a very valuable miniature that she possessed of her mother. This picture was gone, and was doubtless the temptation which urged the murderer to the deed. We have no trace of him at present, although our exertions to discover him are unremitted. But they will not restore my beloved William. Come, dearest Victor, you alone can console Elizabeth. She weeps continually, and accuses herself unjustly as the cause of his death. Her words pierce my heart. We are all unhappy, but will not that be an additional motive for you, my son, to return to be our comforter? Your dear mother, alas, Victor, I now say, thank God, she did not live to witness the cruel, miserable death of her youngest darling. Come, Victor, not brooding thoughts of vengeance against the assassin, but with feelings of peace and gentleness that will heal instead of festering the wounds of our minds. Enter the house of mourning, my friend, but with the kindness and affection for those who love you, and not with the hatred of your enemies. Your affectionate and afflicted father, Alphonse Frankenstein. Geneva, May 12, 17. Clerval, who had watched my countenance as I read this letter, was surprised to observe the despair that succeeded to the joy I at first expressed on receiving news from my friends. I threw the letter on the table, and covered my face with my hands. "My dear Frankenstein," exclaimed Henry, when he perceived me to weep with bitterness, "are we always to be unhappy? My friend, what has happened?" I motioned to him to take up the letter, while I walked up and down the room in the extremest agitation. Tears also gushed from the eyes of Clerval as he read the account of my misfortune. "I can offer you no consolation, my friend," he said. "Your disaster is irreparable. What do you intend to do?" "To go instantly to Geneva. Come with me, Henry, to order the horses." During the walk, Clerval endeavored to say a few words of consolation. He could only express his heartfelt sympathy. "Poor William," he said. "Dear lovely child, he now sleeps with his angel mother, who that had seen him bright and joyous in his young beauty, but must weep over his untimely loss. To die so miserably, to feel the murderer's grasp, how much more murderer that could destroy such radiant innocence? Poor little fellow! One only consolation have we. His friend mourns and weeps, but he is at rest. The pang is over, his sufferings are at an end for ever. A sod covers his gentle form, and he knows no pain. He can no longer be a subject for pity. He must reserve that for the miserable survivors." Clerval spoke thus as we hurried through the streets. The words impressed themselves on my mind, and I remembered them afterwards in solitude. But now, as soon as the horses arrived, I hurried into the cabriolet and bade farewell to my friend. My journey was very melancholy. At first I wished to hurry on, for I longed to console and sympathize with my loved and sorrowing friends. But when I drew near my native town, I slackened my progress. I could hardly sustain the multitude of feelings that crowded into my mind. I passed through the scenes familiar to my youth, but which I had not seen for nearly 6 years. How altered everything might be during that time! One sudden and desolating change had taken place, but 1,000 little circumstances might have by degrees worked other alterations, which, although they were done more tranquilly, might not be the less decisive. Fear overcame me. I dared not advance, dreading 1,000 nameless evils that made me tremble, although I was unable to define them. I remained 2 days in Lausanne in this painful state of mind. I contemplated the lake. The waters were placid. All around was calm. The snowy mountains, places of nature, were not changed. By degrees the calm and heavenly scene restored me, and I continued my journey towards Geneva. The road ran by my side and by the side of the lake, which became narrower as I approached my native town. I discovered more distinctly the black sides of Jura and the bright summit of Mont Blanc. I wept like a child. Dear mountains, my own beautiful lake, how do you welcome your wanderer? Your summits are clear, the sky and the lake are blue and placid. Is this to prognosticate peace, or to mock at my unhappiness? I fear, my friend, that I shall render myself tedious by dwelling on these preliminary circumstances, but they were days of comparative happiness, and I think of them with pleasure. My country, my beloved country, who but a native can tell the delight I took in again beholding thy streams, thy mountains, and, more than all, the lovely lake. Yet, as I drew nearer home, grief and fear again overcame me. Night always closed around, and when I could hardly see the dark mountains, I felt still more gloomily. The picture appeared a vast and dim scene of evil, and I foresaw obscurely that I was destined to become the most wretched of all human beings. Alas! I prophesied truly, and failed only in one single circumstance, that in all the misery I imagined and dreaded, I did not conceive the 100th part of the anguish I was desired to endure. It was completely dark when I arrived in the environs of Geneva. The gates of the town were already shut, and I was obliged to pass the night at Secaran, a village at the distance of half a league from the city. The sky was serene, and as I was unable to rest, I resolved to visit the spot where my poor William had been murdered. As I could not pass through the town, I was obliged to cross the lake in a boat to arrive in Plain Palais. During this short voyage, I saw the lightnings playing on the summit of the Mont Blanc in the most beautiful figures. The storm appeared to approach rapidly, and on landing, I ascended a low hill that I might observe its progress. It advanced, the heavens were clouded, and I soon felt the rain coming slowly in large drops, but its violence quickly increased. I quitted my seat and walked on, although the darkness and storm increased every minute, and the thunder burst with a terrific crash over my head. It was echoed from Salive, the Juras, and the Alps of Savoy. Vivid flashes of lightning darkened my eyes, illuminating the lake, making it appear like a vast sheet of fire. Then, for an instant, everything seemed of a pitchy darkness, until the eye recovered itself from the preceding flash. The storm, as it is often the case in Switzerland, appeared at once in various parts of the heavens. The most violent storm hung exactly north of the town, over the part of the lake which lies between the promontory of Bellerive and the village of Quebec. Another storm enlightened Jura with faint flashes, and another darkened and sometimes disclosed the mole, a peaked mountain to the east of the lake. While I watched the tempest, so beautiful yet terrific, I wondered on what with a hasty step. This noble war in the sky elevated my spirits. I clasped my hands and exclaimed aloud, "William, dear angel, this is thy funeral, this thy dirge." As I said these words, I perceived in the gloom a figure which stole from behind a clump of trees near me. I stood fixed, gazing intently. I could not be mistaken. A flash of lightning illuminated the object, and discovered its shape plainly to me. Its gigantic stature, and the deformity of its aspect, more hideous than belongs to humanity, instantly informed me that it was the wretch, the filthy demon, to whom I had given life. What did he there? Could he be, I shuddered at the conception, the murderer of my brother? No sooner did that idea cross my imagination than I became convinced of its truth. My teeth chattered, and I was forced to lean against a tree for support. The figure passed me quickly, and I lost it in the gloom. Nothing in human shape could have destroyed that fair child. He was the murderer. I could not doubt it. The mere presence of the idea was irresistible proof of the fact. I thought of pursuing the devil, but it would have been in vain, for another flash discovered him to me hanging among the rocks of the nearly perpendicular ascent of Mount Salève, a hill that bound Plain-Palais on the south. He soon reached the summit and disappeared. I remained motionless. The thunder ceased, but the rain will continue, and the scene was enveloped in an impenetrable darkness. I revolved in my mind the events which I had until now sought to forget. The whole train of my progress towards the creation, the appearance of the work of my own hands, alive at my bedside, its departure. 2 years had now nearly elapsed since the night on which he first received life. And was this his first crime? Alas, I had turned loose into the world a depraved wretch, whose delight was in carnage and misery. He had not murdered my brother. No one can conceive the anguish I suffered during the remainder of the night, which I spent, cold and wet, in the open air. But I did not feel the inconvenience of the weather. My imagination was busy in scenes of evil and despair. I considered the being whom I cast among mankind and endowed with the will and power to effect purpose of horror. Such is the deed which he had now done, nearly in the light of my own vampire, my own spirit let loose from the grave, and forced to destroy all that was dear to me. Well, on that note, boys and girls, we're going to leave off here and go to our music break. On this break, we have Mr. Jeff Hilliard with Cock That Heals, Silicone Wave, and The Good Life. We have Cockroach from the UK with ICU, and then we have Miss Mia Savage with Antidote for Savages with Lemurian Crypto. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
You're desperate and pathetic. Nothing but a coward. You're a fool with nothing to offer. No one will ever believe you. They see you for what you are. You're just a fraud, a shell of a person. And now the spirits of Alcatraz and demons, they love you. They enslave you into the dungeon of the hate. I am the son of a...
I just got a package, I can't wait to get home. I spent all day tracking the shipment on my phone, all that she was lacking. I ordered custom, I can't wait to get some. Take it to the bedroom, bitch is always nagging. Now I got the AI, send this bitch is packing, going my way. I have a new attraction, don't care what you say, it's better in every way. Now baby it's time to play, we're gonna make us a tape and show everyone the way. Cause I'm going my own way, riding up the Silicon Way. I won't see on the game with my new real doll, I'm gonna play. Just second grade to Mount Silicon Way. She is here to stay, she's my new real doll and it's time to play. She don't need expensive date nights, never talks back, I'm always right. Stuff it in her face with all my might. She don't even care, we don't ever fight. She never cries when I'm testing the suspension. We blow it up like it's fucking Armageddon. We make the videos because this is perfection. Look at this erection, I don't need protection. Cause I'm going my own way, riding up the Silicon Way. I won't see on the game with my new real doll, I'm gonna play. Just second grade to Mount Silicon Way. She is here to stay, she's my new real doll and it's time to play. With my new real doll, I'm gonna play. She's my new real doll and it's time to play.
The woman of my dreams.
Voulez-vous coucher avec moi?
Fais-moi l'amour.
Je suis amoureux.
Je pense toujours à
Enchanté,
tu es charmant.
ma chérie, mon
Tu es
futur
charmant.
dynastie.
Tu
Easy touchy rubber nipple.
es chaud. Fais-moi
It's like living on a super yacht, making love to a robot. It's like owning a football team, but having sex with a robot. It's like winning an Oscar and Emmy or Grammy when you're fucking a robot. It's like saving a family with a newborn from a fire, but you're fucking a robot. I'm going my own way.
save you. They're hiding behind the moon, watching your every move. This is the good life. This is the good life. This is the good life.
Get money. Get money.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us this evening on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. We had story time tonight. We read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Now we were moving right along to Reddit Halloween stories. This story is called Evelyn. Every day she wished to be held. Every day she wished that someone would pick her up and rock her back and forth and kiss her soft felt cheeks. And one day someone did. A girl picked her, yes, her, to bring home and call her her own lovely companion. The girl named Evelyn. Evelyn vowed to be the best companion for Nadia, her new owner, soulmate, beholder of all the affectionate joys that Evelyn could bestow upon the child. Evelyn could blink her real human lashes sultrily when fitted or tilted. Is that jilted? I don't know. Lift her arms up to hug Nadia, and a string in her back, when pulled, gave her the ability to sing 3 different lullabies. Together, they had ballroom dances to imagine, theatrical plays to write, scripts for and reenact, and tea parties with ever-changing guests, consisting of a rotation of Nadia's infinite toys. Nadia's father was a luxury car salesman, her mother a renowned singer. They entertained many guests with perpetual parties, and what they lacked in terms of physical attention to their child they made up for in the form of an endless parade of gifts, toys, and intricate pretty things addressed to our beloved Nadia. Therefore Nadia was endlessly distracted, and if she felt lonely she did not know it. Her life was filled with beautiful toys and clothes, and more toys. Her favorite toys Nadia housed in her bedroom on the 2nd floor. One day, while Nadia was taken to see a potential private school for the next year, Evelyn was left in the bedroom window, which had been left open for the hot summer day. She heard a little voice. "Hello," the voice said, raspily and small. "Hello." "Who is that?" Evelyn asked. "It's me," the voice said. "Down here." She peeked over the window and looked down. In a small rubbish heap lay a lot of dirty things, but also what looked like a lump of wet fur. A head lifted up slightly from the lump, sporting a pair of long ears. It was the misshapen head of a plush rabbit. "What happened to you?" Evelyn asked. "I used to belong to Nadia," the rabbit said faintly. Evelyn could barely hear him. "Now I lie forgotten here. They threw me out when she got sick." "Why?" Evelyn asked. "I don't know," the rabbit said. "I want to be held just one more time, please. Come and hold me." "I don't know," Evelyn said, looking at his misshapen head, his dirty, grass-stained fur. "I'll see what I can do." She turned away and waited for Nadia. In the evening, when Nadia came back, she brushed her teeth, smothered Evelyn in kisses, and brought her favorite doll to bed. They both went to sleep and dreamt pleasant dreams. The next morning, Nadia whisked away to a picnic in the enchanted forest with silken-winged pixies and wooden figurine frogfolk, complete with a new porcelain tea set hand-painted with the most exquisite violets, and a red and white checkered picnic blanket. and butterfly lanterns that sparkled in iridescent colors. By the end of the day, full of laughter, songs, and strawberry shortcake, Evelyn had forgotten about the rabbit. Fall passed and winter came. Evelyn and Nadia spent a cozy Christmas making up theaters about elves, kidnapped children, and betting on reindeer races at the North Pole. Spring blossomed, and by the time a second summer had passed, many things had changed. Nadia was 12 now. Not so much a little girl, or at least so Nadia felt about herself. Nadia's parents thought so too, which is why they had enrolled her in a private middle school for established young girls. Nadia invited a new friend from school to her house, and immediately the friend instructed Nadia on throwing out the old, inviting in the new. New back-to-school clothes and new toys. Evelyn sat on the bed, her satin dress slightly worn, one lullaby no longer playing properly. It had been a while since Nadia had last played with her. "You know that Bratz is the rage right now, right?" The friend picked up Evelyn by the ankle, and the next moment she found herself flying out the window. She tumbled onto the rubbish heap and rolled over and over before crashing into a rock. She stood up and checked herself for damage. Everything seemed fine. Then she looked around. The rabbit was no longer there, at least that Evelyn could see, but there were a lot of other toys that had lost so much color, shape, and form that they were unrecognizable. But there was one, the wooden frog folk she had picnicked with last summer. So that's where he had gone. A less fortunate pixie lay next to him, her porcelain body broken, her face cracked and still. "What just happened?" Evelyn said, picking herself up. The frog, worn by the rain, wind, and sun, he sat there, the lacquer on his once shiny green skin dulled, his once sparkling black eyes grayed. "I wait here every day to be noticed," he said, "but I never am." Evelyn looked up at the window, shielding her eyes from the sunlight and trying to see if there was a way back up. A head propped out of the window, but it wasn't Nadia. It was the face of a strange doll, with bright purple-colored streaks in her jet-black hair and giant lips on her heavily made-up face. The doll was held by Nadia's new friend, a girl with pink extensions in her smooth blonde hair and rouge on her lips. "Hello!" Evelyn shouted. "Help!" The doll looked down at Evelyn and then turned her attention back to her owner, who brought her back inside and shut the window. "Wait!" Evelyn said. No one answered. "She'll be back," Evelyn thought, looking at herself in a cracked toy mirror as it began to rain. After all, she still looked beautiful, unlike these other toys. Nadia would go to bed and see that Evelyn was missing, and then come out to bring her back in there, where the soft, warm bed was. The night light would be glowing, and the glow-in-the-dark stars would be sparkling on the ceiling, but Nadia didn't come. The sun rose and fell and rose again, and Evelyn watched the sun and the sky turn from pitch black to gray, the lightest gray in the world. "She didn't come," Evelyn murmured. "A toy is made to be loved," an old cowboy with a broken gun holster said. "I feel your pain, sister." Evelyn sat on a miniature carriage, lying on its side, its wheels broken and jagged. The rabbit's word echoed in her head. "Please come and hold me." Evelyn sat till the sun had set. The moon was bright and round in the sky. Not even a goodbye or last word. Nadia hadn't even given her that. She stood up from the heap of rubbish toys. "Where are you going?" the cowboy said. You don't have a child to play with anymore. That's all right, Evelyn said. I have a play of my own. She spent 2 weeks gathering strips of fabric, some ripped from long-since decayed toys, and tied them together to make a rope. She waited till nightfall. Then she swung the rope onto the protruding nail halfway up the edge of Nadia's window sill above, and started to climb. It was a long and hard climb. Her limbs, made of soft felt, were not meant to be strained, and she could feel herself ripping at the knees, at the hips, and the elbows. But that was all right. Sacrifice was necessary for love, and she loved Nadia. So much. When she reached the nail, she took the rope and swung it again, this time reaching a jagged edge of the wood near the window sill itself. She pulled out a loose nail, stuck it in her head, and pulled herself up with all her might. She heaved herself from the piece of jagged wood up upon the window sill itself. As she did so, she felt her foot snag on the splinter and give. She dragged herself to the bedpost and climbed up the metal rungs. When she got to the top, she removed the nail from her head and kissed Nadia on the cheek. "You and me," she said. "It's always been you and me, forever." In the early hours of the morning, the first thing anyone heard was a scream from the second floor of the house. I remember the doors opening, jack-o'-lanterns and animatronics waving me into a world of spooky wonder. It was only October 4th, and I was already so excited for trick-or-treating, I could barely breathe. I looked at the sign above, the generic Halloween store logo haphazardly plastered over the bright and wonderful sign, the Hitley's Palace, a back-in-the-day hybrid clone of both Chuck E. Cheese and Toys R Us. One that apparently didn't exist anymore. I could recall the commercial for the grand opening, a comically tall mascot in a suit with an eyeball for a head, cutting a big ribbon with a large set of golden scissors. I remembered the cartoons airing on TV, but was too young to know it had been bankrupt and closed, leaving a shell in the corner of the otherwise busy mall. The thought of it being painted so easily made me feel strange, but the dancing ghosts and zombies inside were quickly charging my tune. "Come on, buddy, let's see some scary stuff." My dad patted me on the back. I believe I read this story. Holy Schnuggies. Yep, that's where the clown gets him. So as soon as I was through the doors, a blur of movement flashed before me, and a clown screamed with outstretched arms. I nearly jumped out of my skin, and my dad laughed. I recoiled at his menacing face, one that quickly melted away, and said, "If you need help finding anything, let me know." I felt tears welling, but my dad said it was just a joke, and assured me that he was just trying to spread some Halloween spirit. In seconds, I had forgotten about the old Heidi cartoon, my world consumed by bags of candy corn and hanging costumes. The Halloween store was a magical place with loads of decorations and disgusting props, even a lady dressed as a witch behind the counter. My dad corralled me around the skeletons and prop heads, letting me get close but not letting me touch anything. "These things are expensive. If we break it, we have to buy it," was something he always said, a voice that echoed in my head every time I reached for the light-up pumpkins or giant spiders. It didn't matter if I couldn't touch them. Just being in the big spooky world made my heart race so fast I thought I would pee myself. Hundreds of costumes choices, anywhere from a zombie pirate to a giant hot dog. The bigger kids were crowded around the wall of masks, so my dad decided to avoid it and distracted me with costumes from popular scary movies. I kept expecting the clown to pop up again, but I never saw him. We made several laps around the store, and each time I saw something I had missed previously. With each round, my dad got more and more tired, and I could hear the patience thinning in his voice. I still hadn't found a costume. I could tell we were about to go. I was doing everything I could to keep us in the scary wonderland. Just as he was steering me towards the register, I thought of something that made my world crash down. We had never looked at the masks. I looked back at the wall of faces and saw the bigger kids had cleared out. I thought of the clown lingering and decided to chance it for an opportunity to see them. My dad was talking sweetly to the witch cashier, and she was leaning towards him, twirling a long lock on her finger. I tugged on his hand to get his attention, one he pacified by squeezing my hand in warning. Well, I never thought I could really pull off a lumberjack, but... Dad, can I please go look at the mask, please? I blurted, making both of them look at me. I could see my dad's flash of anger, one that seemed to fizzle away when the witch had put her hand on his. He sighed and reluctantly agreed. Only for a minute, and don't touch anything. But I was already gone, ready to have the whole wall of masks to myself. I dashed through rows of costumes, blinking lights, and weaved through other customers as I made my way to the wall. I could see them clearer now, all of my Halloween spirit writhing in a torrent of anxious excitement. I burst out of an aisle into the open wall, feeling dwarfed under the size of the collection. I looked for the clown and saw no sign of him. Without my dad trailing behind me, I suddenly felt very alone, the wall of masks staring down at me. I looked over each face.
Just took a shower.
Chapson. Okay, I'm reading a story. Bye.
Oh, and also, Dad had to deal with me.
Oh, yeah?
If I got in the shower in 5 seconds and got my clothes ready, I would be able to not go to bed right away.
Oh. Well, I must say you look very handsome and debonair. I love the way you brushed your hair today. Or this evening.
Or right now.
Right now. So go put this back because I guess Lily's in the tub or running a tub or something.
Oh, no, this was in this hallway right here.
Well, can you hear it? It's like... It's
I don't
very
think
loud.
that's a...
That's the tub running, yeah. That's what it sounds like.
I remember that now.
Yeah. All right, take that brush back to Sissy. Let me say.
A, B, C, J, K, R, S.
Yes, that is what we are best.
See?
Stranger Things, you...
CJ.
Yes. I know. Love you, Sunny. Boy, hold on, yeah. Gotta rig my door because, yeah, that's the last entrant I'm going to have in this evening. Anywho's, I looked over each face. Some I recognized, others I didn't. A man with nails protruding from his face, the wild-eyed face of a man wearing someone else's face, a black unicorn with burning stars for eyes. I looked at each one, marveling at both the detail in the masks and the feeling of dread it inspired in me. Despite my growing fear, I kept looking, each one more unsettling than the last. An unsettling white face with brown hair, a man with horribly burned skin. Something between the hangers caught my eye, and I found myself stopping. There was something hiding in the shadow, the faintest glint catching the lights from overhead. Like a mask had fallen down from behind the others. It was roundish and looked like it had a dot in the middle. I tried to see it better, but it was just too dark. I had to get closer. I looked for my dad, and I realized I was too far away from the register to see him. The store suddenly felt very empty, and I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I decided I would just take a peek and run back to him. I turned around and parted the other mask with my hands, trying to get a better look. It was round, like a beach ball, a singular dot right in the center. I moved my face closer, the familiar shape slowly making sense in my head. After a moment, I realized it wasn't a dot, but a pupil. It reminded me of Heidi's playhouse, but the realistic features made it look more unsettling than friendly, and there wasn't another like it in the whole store. It was perfect, and I wanted it to be my costume. I reached for the mask, but I was too far away. I tried to worm my way between the hangers, keeping the mask in my view as I inched between them. When I reached again, one of the hangers caught my shirt, preventing me from going further. When I tried to shake it off, I felt something grab my hand. I looked to see long black fingers wrapped around my hand, an icy grip that came from the shadows of the rack. I felt a sickening pit in my stomach and tried to pull away, but it wouldn't let go. The pupil on the Heidi mask dilated and blinked. Before I could scream, the hand yanked me into the wall and I blacked out. When I awoke, I felt the cold press of the floor on my face. I jumped to my feet and looked around, feeling a kindling panic when I didn't recognize where I was. I was in an aisle, black and white checkered tile, reaching for as long as I could see. There were shelves on either side of me, neatly organized toys stacked high until they almost touched the fluorescents above. "Dad?" I called out, my voice meaning nothing but dead silence. The aisle seemed to stretch forever, hundreds of toys lining the path both ways. I found myself shivering, wanting desperately to go home. Next to me was a cardboard cutout, bold letters announcing the grand opening. Heidi's Palace! Join Heidi and his sidekick Shep, the sheepdog, on the greatest game of hide-and-go-seek ever! The cutout depicted an unusually tall and lanky man dressed in a suit, with a large eyeball serving as his head. Beside him was an adorable-looking sheepdog with sparkling eyes that stood on its hind legs like a person. It looked just like the cartoon I had seen on TV. At the bottom of the sign read its catchy little slogan, "No one can hide from Heidi." A scream echoed down the aisle, and I looked to see the clown from the store. He was running towards me, flailing his hands. I'm not sure what frightened me more, the sight of him or the fact that he looked terrified. "Kid, oh my God, kid, we gotta get out of here," he shouted, grabbing me by the shoulders. He was breathing hard, tears streaking through his clown makeup. I started to cry. "Kid, tell me, how did you get in here? We need to find a way out. He's coming!" He shouted frantically, looking back down the direction he came. There was nothing but darkness, a billowing, shifting void that seemed to churn at the end of the aisle. "Who's coming?" I blubbered, lips trembling. I I don't know. I don't know who he is. He's just not fucking right. We gotta go, kid. We gotta..." Suddenly, a large hand gripped the clown's shoulder and yanked him away, pulling so hard his oversized shoes kicked off his feet. The arm that grabbed him stretched from the darkness and held him up in the air, wrapping around his throat until he choked for breath. "No! Please!" I watched in horror as the arm slammed him down, an impact so hard it rattled the boxes on the shelves. The clown coughed and clutched at his stomach, and the long arm slithered away into the darkness. "Run, kid! Run!" He coughed, but he wasn't looking at me. From the darkness poked a large pair of golden shears, reflecting in fluorescent light. The blades opened like a guillotine, worked by two long hands that gripped the loop fiercely. Out stepped an incredibly thin body, standing tall, with a massive, bloodshot, spherical eyeball. I froze with fear as the scarily shaped Heidi crouched to keep his head from hitting the ceiling. He cast a shadow over the clown as he approached, who was holding his hand out in surrender. "You thought you could hide from me?" It spoke with no mouth, the massive eye narrowing in front of him. "No!" The blades closed, shearing the clown's arm and head from his body. The separated pieces flailed and sprayed, but Heidi was already opening the shears again to give it another go. He crossed them again and then again, flinging a spatter of minced nuts and bloody spray as he kept snapping the giant scissors. As red speckles peppered his giant eye, Heidi looked at me and stopped, snapping the shears at the air. I turned and ran, heading into the opposite direction as a piercing shriek emitted from the eyeball. The limb skittered like a spider, closing the distance in seconds as I screamed. I woke in my father's arms, crying hysterically. We were sitting on the floor, and he was rocking me back and forth as a crowd gathered around us. I was back in the Halloween store. The checkered tile beneath me was once again old, scuffed carpet. Heidi was nowhere to be found. My dad asked me what had happened, saying he found me on the floor crying by the mass. I told him everything. Heidi with his scissors, and the clown in the long store-like hallway, the girl which cashier suggested maybe I had gotten lost in the back and found some of the old store cutouts. She said Harv? The clown was supposed to be grabbing more items and restock, and she could go and get him to apologize. She returned moments later confused, saying he was nowhere to be found. Underneath the wall of mass, a red stain was growing in the carpet. The vending machine. Dylan wanted a Kit Kat. Well, who doesn't? He was in the middle of his rounds after hours at a office building he patrolled as a security guard. It was an easy enough job and night shift only. The team consisting of just him and another guy that would take turns walking a route through the halls of the facility. Their post was strictly to deter late-night break-ins as the day crew would wrap up production after 5 p.m. and the place would be empty for the rest of the day. It had been an issue as of late, vandalization mostly. Since he started it, had been quite quiet, nothing but empty halls to break up the monotony of bad jokes. He checked his watch. Hold on, I have to take a little shippy. Grandpa's magical cough shirt. He checked his watch. He was a few minutes ahead of schedule. There was an old vending machine a little ways back, and he decided he would hit it for a late-night snack. He walked briskly, keys jingling with every step as he trekked back. In under a minute he made it, and was rewarded with a dated lineup of chips and candy bars. An old bulb lit the selection, flickering faintly as he looked over the display. He had never bought from the machine before, but tonight his craving was a little too demanding to ignore. After a glance in the empty hall around him, he fished a bill from his wallet and fed it to the machine. With a ring, it lapped it up, and he glanced at the number below the red wrapper before punching it in. A3. Nothing. Dylan looked at its screen, where it showed the clear indication of $1 in currency. He hit the buttons again. A3. The candy remained frozen in place, the flickering light teasing him in the dark hall. "Come on, you!" he said under his breath, and hit the number again. The idle screen taunted him with little yellow-greenish letters at the lack of selection. "Who's hungry?" "Me! I'm hungry!" he scowled, and tried again. A3. Nothing. He mashed the buttons, alternating them with his fingers in frustration. Same response. "Who's hungry?" Dylan glanced in the hall again, both ways, and gave the machine a loud smack on the side. The lights flickered off, and he felt foolish for being rash. To his relief, it was short-lived, and they flickered back on, and the silver coil turning to drop his prize. At last the Kit Kat fell. The cut lodged above the receptacle. Dylan sighed and crouched to reach in to retrieve it. Just as his fingers grazed the wrapper, the light shut off again, leaving him indisposed in the darkness of the hall. He went on to move only to find his hands stuck. The lights flickered loudly, and Dylan was met with a twisted face. Contorted in anger, the face stared at him. The attached body mangled and squeezed behind the glass. An ebony hand was lashed to his wrist. It moaned 2 hoarse words, and Dylan started to scream, "Who's hungry?" This one is called Forks. I was at the flea market when I first saw it. It looked unused and old. I reckoned it must be made of pure silver. Who the heck would want to get rid of these forks, I thought. Such good utensils. I proceeded to ask the seller about it. The young man shrugged and just told me the price is $9.99 for the whole set. Since I thought it was unused, why not? I needed new silverware anyway. When I came home, my cat Walker greeted me at the door. "Been a good girl?" I asked. Walker stared at my bag with interest. "No toy today." I moved into the kitchen, set the bag on the island. Walker followed me and still eyed on it. While I was preparing dinner, marinating the chicken using Dad's recipe, I heard scratching noises. The cat. I found her trying to reach the bag. "What's wrong with you, kitty?" I carried Walker to her scratch post in the next room. She hissed and scratched me and sped off. I cussed and chased after her into the kitchen. A loud clatter and more scratching noises. I found the cat pawing at the forks like it were a trapped mice. I then glanced at the time and realized I had to really cook. My cousin and her kid was coming over for dinner. Angry at Walker, I put her in her kennel and I cleaned up the mess. After really cleaning my scratch and bandaging it and the forks, I continued cooking. All the time, my cat hissed. And right before family came, I quickly fed Walker, but she seemed distracted by something. She raised her head slowly, then she stared at the ceiling, just staring. What now? I glanced around, thinking it's a spider. I stared at the spot as my cat. There was nothing there. Stop! I then checked everything. When I came for the forks, there were none laying there. The last place I put them. Funny. I searched wildly, and it wasn't until I returned to the kitchen that the forks were found, laying at random spots. I eyed Walker suspiciously. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. I quickly grabbed whatever forks I could find, and I welcomed Eloise and her toddler David into my house. Dinner was a dramatic event. David wouldn't eat his veggies, and Walker wouldn't shut up. However, during dinner, Eloise forked a piece of chicken and began choking. At least, I thought at first. I then saw her spit blood. Before I could help, I felt something snake down my throat. My stomach, burning sensation. It spread, raking my insides. What the hell? I soon tasted iron. Desperately, I pulled out my fork, finding it stretched from my mouth like taffy. It wouldn't budge. I scraped my tongue and my tonsils. I spat blood. "Aunt Jody!" David said as the third fork aimed for his head and the other folks pinned Walker to the wall. "You and Mommy spilled grape juice." Creepy. A nightly visitor. I was a senior in high school on Christmas break. It was a Saturday night and it was snowing heavily. 31 Days of Christmas was on, and I didn't plan on sleeping at all. It was about 1 in the morning. I was just starting to watch A Christmas Story when our family dog, Simba, started pleading at the door to go outside. I sighed. I was cozy on the couch and didn't want to go outside into the cold. Simba kept scratching at the back door until I finally gave in. I paused my movie, grabbed my winter jacket, put my boots on, and put on Simba's leash. I opened the door, and it was freezing. It looked like I was inside of a snow globe. What was annoying was Simba wouldn't go to the bathroom unless we walked him all the way to the back of the backyard. There was about 3 feet of snow, and I was not happy about it. After about 10 minutes of waiting for Simba to go, he finally did, and we thankfully made our way back inside. I shut the door behind me, but immediately noticed something strange. There were giant wet footprints in my kitchen, leading all the way to my dad's office. It was past 1 in the morning. I know my dad wouldn't be up at this hour. I called out, "Hello?" and I heard a noise come from inside my dad's office. I was terrified at this point. Did somebody come inside while I walked Simba? I moved closer to the office, listening closely. I heard movement. Someone was definitely in my dad's office, and it wasn't my dad. I took a deep breath and pushed open the office door. It was pitch black in there. I didn't see anything. I moved my hand around, trying to find the light switch, and then it flickered on. I screamed bloody murder. There, in the corner, was a man dressed in all black. Black ski mask, black gloves, and black everything. He had something in his arms and then proceeded to jump clean out of the office window. Seconds later, my mom and dad came sprinting down and found me standing in the office alone and petrified. We called the police and made a report. The intruder was only able to steal one of my dad's laptops. But that was worse. What is worse is the mental damage it's done to me. Having an unknown person invade your private space like that does something unsettling to your mind. Be careful this holiday season. I know it's full of joy and happiness, but at the same time, it can be filled with darkness and evil. You guys stay safe out there. On that note, you guys, that's the end of our evening. We were reading Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And then we ended the evening with Reddit Halloween stories. I'm so glad you guys could be here tonight to do that with me. I have to grab my clipboard. My clipboard. I just want to thank you guys so much for being here with me, sharing the story time with me, and just hanging out on Late Night in the Rockies on We Are Paradox Media. Thank you to all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's KPNL Radio, Facebook, Twitter, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you may be listening this evening. I had a wonderful time, and I can't wait to do it next week. We're going to have story time again with me, and then we got Mr. Toytron back. We're going to finish up the UFO stories, etc. that we were discussing last time he was on. It's going to be awesome. Until then, nighty-night, love and light to all my yous. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Please don't work too hard. Take care of my yous. And I will see you back here same time, same crazy place. If you ever need to call me, just give me a call, 970-335-9596. That's 970-335-9596. Nighty-night, love and light.